TaxAct knows every small business owner has different tax filing needs. With TaxAct, you can file yourself with the help of an expert, or TaxAct can do it all for you. You're the boss, the head honcho, the top banana. And TaxAct is like your loyal, trusty tax aide, ready to pounce on any tax needs you might have. TaxAct is dying to pounce on some small business tax needs. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Remember when James Cameron nearly directed a Spider-Man movie?
What about when we almost got Batman Year One with Joaquin Phoenix?
Or David Goyer's Flash movie that would have starred Ryan Reynolds?
Well, if you want to learn about all the unmade superhero movies, then check out Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
Hosted by Ben Wan and Alex Ramsey, every month we cover nostalgic superhero movies with deep dives into unmade scripts, early drafts, deleted scenes, alternate cuts, concept art, novelizations, and tie-in novels.
We also interview the people involved in making the superhero films of our childhood, with our past guests including superhero actors, directors, screenwriters, and concept artists.
So remember, that's Superhero Stuff You Should Know, or Superhero SYSK on social media. Check us out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Katie, this is the first time in I don't know how long where I know your feelings on something, and I think I have the complete opposite opinion as you, because you sent me your notes.
I did. At least half of them, but they are the same pretty much throughout. But
yeah.
So
it's no secret that I'm a huge Rob Bell fan.
Yeah.
I talk about Rob Bell a lot. I really like Rob Bell. And I've wanted us to be able to talk about Rob Bell.
Yeah.
And, you know, how do you do that? How do you talk about a pastor and a guy who's written a ton of books and has a podcast that's not like you're required to read this book or listen to multiple podcast episodes? But I was reminded that very early in his career, this was kind of the thing that got him in front of people for the first time. So this was the only, I've never watched the other Nooma videos. I've only ever seen this one. Someone had sent me this. So I think what I want to do is quick early history of Rob Bell, history of this Nooma video series. We'll talk about our feelings on this particular video that we watched. And then after the commercial break, I'll talk about all the things that Rob Bell has done past these Nooma videos coming out. So very quick history on Rob Bell. When he was in high school and college, he was the lead singer of a punk rock band. He actually found his interest in preaching when he was teaching water skiing at a Christian camp.
Oh my gosh.
And the preacher fell ill, and they asked him if he would fill in for a few nights. And that's where he found a love for doing it. After getting his degree in divinity, him and his wife moved to Grand Rapids to be closer to family, and on the invitation to study under Pastor Ed Dodson, he handled many of the preaching duties for the Saturday night services at Calvary Church, and Bell announced that he would be branching out and starting a new kind of community that he would name Mars Hill. On February 1999, he founded Mars Hill Bible Church. The church originally met weekly in a school gymnasium in Wyoming, Michigan. Love when a city is the name of a state.
Yep.
Within a year, the church was given a shopping mall in Granville, Michigan, and then purchased the surrounding land. And on July of 2000, a 3,500 gray chair facility finally opened its doors. It was around this time that Bell became the featured speaker for the Nooma video series. The series was short films released between 2002 and 2009. All of the videos featured the teachings of Rob Bell, accompanied by music that was written and performed by local artists, and was fully shot on scrappy budgets using locations in the Michigan area.
Okay.
The video's goals were to address heavy topics that were usually ignored in youth groups through a relatable conversation on such topics, including, do our lives really matter? Why is silence so hard to deal with? Why do I always feel so ashamed? Suffering the loss of someone we love can be the most difficult thing in life that we deal with. And when we omit the feminine, are we missing out on fundamental parts of God's nature? The video that I picked, because it's the only one I've ever seen, was it's not always easy to forgive someone. And this video is released under the name Luggage. Now, I have a confession to make.
Please.
Not unlike David Grohl, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I think every time that I've put this on, which I've put this on double digits at least,
Okay.
like when I'm in like a weird spot,
Yeah.
this is like one of my comfort videos, but I don't think I've ever watched the video. I think I've always put it on and listened to him talking.
Got it. That makes
in
a lot
the
of
background.
sense. Yes.
So I'm like, to me, this after reading your notes, I watched it and I'm like, oh, I can see
how I thought this way.
yeah, I'm like, I see all of Katie's points. So I'm kind of interested to talk about the filmmaking and the message, because I think that there are some really, especially when you think about 2002, some very progressive statements
Yes.
in this video. Like there's one point where he's like, if your spouse is hitting you, you need to leave.
Right, and I assumed that was the main point that like made you really love this video, because that's not something that people were really talking about or addressing full on.
That's
at that
still
point in
not
time.
something that people are addressing in the church in
Agreed.
2026.
I agreed.
So for
100%.
2002 for this to happen, now I did watch a video. I found a video that was in my suggestions. That was a 5-minute video, and it was Rob Bell explains why the Nooma videos were so extraordinary. And it was this interview that he was doing, and he said, like, he was interviewed by this filmmaker, and he goes, I had never seen anything like that when I saw Nooma. And he said, yeah, it was really important that we shot in 35 millimeter, that we did it scrappy, that it felt indie in all of those ways. And he goes, and I remember a Christian bookstore telling me, no one will ever watch this. No one will ever care about this. You are better off just putting this as a bonus disc in the back of a book, and maybe 1 out of every 1,000 people will pop that into their DVD player.
Wow.
But like to him, he was like, no, I think that people do need to hear these messages. Like people are striving for a person in the church to explain to them the difficult questions that never get addressed in the church. And like that was his,
that's fair,
but he also said, like, he's like, I was the person who wrote the sermon.
Sure.
And I would send them the sermon, and then I would show up that day and they had a whole script that they had written to go along with the sermon that they shot separately. So like,
oh my God,
he would show up, you know what I mean? Like he would show up and they'd be like, we're filming this one in an airport, and he would film all of his sitting in the airport stuff. And then a separate crew films the wraparound story.
Good Lord.
Which
is
I've never known that this is how the video ends. The video ends so crazy.
I couldn't stop laughing. And here's the thing. I was watching it not on headphones or anything like that, but I was watching it in bed next to Mark, and I was watching it on double time speed.
Yeah.
And Mark was like, what are you watching right now? And I was like, it's my homework for Christian Cringe. Don't worry about it. Just let me get through it. I don't know if you're watching The Pit, but it felt very similar to like, let me do my charts. But I was like, just let me get through this, because I honestly, Rob Bell was someone that like we talked a lot about at APU. Like it was like everybody made references to like videos and stuff. I didn't know about this series, but I have a feeling that people were talking, especially within the film department, about this series nonstop, because I was in college until 2009. So I'm sure more than anything.
I have to say, it is a little cringe the way some of this is shot.
Boy,
but
to introduce someone to this series, just at this episode, which is marked as 007, and I was like, "Ooh, what are we getting, Rob Bell? Are we getting like a
no? That just happened to be the 7th video.
Yeah, I was thinking that like there was going to be some kind of spy stuff happening. I was like, oh, we're in an airport. Like when it opened, I thought, oh, this is actually pretty high tech. It's very Breaking Bad in the way that like people are like unloading luggage and things. And I was like, interesting. Why is he monologuing at the camera? And then it got interesting.
Which I don't think I actually understood or appreciate it now. But again, 2002, this kind of predates the indie film explosion where people were making stuff like this. Like, this is way more like Kevin Smith 90s indie.
It is. It is in its own way, and I don't know if and when this was released online, but this is a smart thing to have released online at that time, if that was the case. But indie filmmaking around the early 2000s was big because that was the way. Because the 90s proved that like independent filmmakers were starting to slowly go into major budget filmmaking because there was a big push for that to happen in Hollywood. It's very much not the same anymore because a lot of that push around the 2010s was when digital was starting to go in. And boy, has digital been devalued from the get.
Yeah, I mean, you still see, small indie artists making something. Like, prime example is like going from, was it Nomadland immediately to the Eternals?
Sure.
Like you're still seeing these indie artists getting funneled straight into big budget after their first feature,
right?
But with very mixed results, because like I think it's crazy for like your second or third movie to be a big budget Marvel movie.
Right.
Like that's crazy.
Right.
Like it's almost like I think that there's a lot of flaws in that system versus like saying, hey, this person made especially that is a prime one where I'm like, what in you watching it's Nomadland, right? Or is it No Man Land? I can't remember what her indie film was, but she made this Academy Award winning indie film for like $50,000.
Yeah.
And like that's awesome. And I love that someone saw that and said, we should do something bigger with her.
Right.
But to go from like a $50,000 human story budget to be like, you're going to make $1 billion epic God's thing. Like, it's like, why wouldn't you try to find a project that like leans into the strengths that you saw in their previous movie, or start them with like a short TV show run, like a Marvel Spotlight, and like there's something that's so strange to me with that because the Eternals is such a rough watch.
It is,
and I don't want to blame the director. Like,
no,
but
and I don't think you
is.
should. Well, I think you should blame the content machine that has been trying to pump out all of these things. And then go watch Wonder Man because it's so much better made.
I just watched the 4th episode, which you told me I would love, and boy, were you right. That episode is such a charming episode. But where is Josh Gad, Katie? Where is he?
That is the ultimate question for that entire Spotlight series. But Josh Gad is lost to the MCU. But getting back to Rob Bell. So one of my first notes that I sent to you is, what in the student film hell is this? And,
it is very student film.
Yeah, well, because I mean, not realizing that this was a preaching series, which I should have realized from the get when I saw that it was Rob Bell. But I was just like, why is he talking directly to camera? What has this got to do with, the airport? And I was like, oh, are we equating luggage to like the metaphor of baggage? Okay. All right. Yeah. But like, we're focused on this woman who is very actress familiar, and I feel like I've seen her and stuff, and I meant to look her up.
Do you watch a lot of Michigan films?
That I know of, I'm not sure. I hope she's still acting. She had a very great face and like very expressive, but I was just like, why are we focused on this woman? And like, it felt creepy the way he was talking about forgiveness so much, and like how hard it is to forgive people. And the conclusion of this movie, it's like I assumed that Rob Bell was gonna kill her. Like, it just felt like he had such.
That's what
anger
you kept saying. You're like, Rob Bell, did you hurt this woman? Was one of the notes that you sent me. Like, it's wild.
Yeah.
And then the thing that I had never fully caught, because I had always just listened to the lovely speech and never had watched the video, was that he ends on like how important it is to forgive people while you have a chance, because you never know when you won't have that opportunity again. And it's the woman leaving the airport parking lot, and then, to quote, I think you should leave, she gets pancaked by a dump truck. Like, she
It made me laugh so hard. And it's like you never know when you can't forgive somebody because they might not be here all along, and then bam, like Regina George style guy hit by a car.
Really is. But again, to think of like a small indie, but like that's a pretty solid car hit.
It is a very solid car hit, and I don't know how they did that. I mean, it felt like a special effect type of move, or like some kind of maybe film magic type of move, where they.
I think it was just a stunt driver hitting a car, like being hit in a car with like a death-proof oh shit bar up in there. I truly think so.
If that is the case, then I hope to any god, real or old, I hope that person got paid very well, because
because it is a hard hit.
It's a hard hit, and I don't know, like there was part of me that felt like it was a little Regina George-esque, where it was just like maybe they just froze a frame and then had the car and then sort of made the noise. I'm not sure.
Now you're going to make me watch the last 5 seconds of this
over and over and over again,
space by space,
as
the way
you
I
should.
used to watch on. Do you remember the days of VHS when there would be a really cool special effect and you would like
frame by frame
pause it and then just hit the like fast forward button one frame at a time to like figure out how it was done? That's what I'm going to be doing on YouTube.
Oh, as you
so
should.
Much harder to do on YouTube though.
It is harder. It is harder. But it's just like it's such an interesting thing when it comes to filmmaking, and especially like I remember during this time, people really loved their twists and like their unexpected moments, especially when it came to like sermon type films, because, you know, they wanted to grip the audience and they wanted to bring them back for more of the sermon and all of this. But I was so like, it makes a lot of sense that they basically had an A unit and a B unit filming different stories, because I was like, why? He's at the airport. He's on these chairs that I was like, either they paid a lot of good money for these chairs to be there, or they actually filmed in an airport, which...
Everything was filmed in famous locations around Michigan. So they filmed this in the actual airport in Michigan. I think I saw it was Fort Washington. Is there Fort Washington, Michigan? I don't know. I have to...
Probably.
I can't remember. I did see that it got specifically called out as like one of the locations. That was kind of a big deal, that they were given the go-ahead to like walk into an airport and film inside of.
I mean, it almost feels like they bought a ticket for Rob Bell and the camera guy.
Mattress.
Yeah, and Rita Mattress.
I do think that there are really powerful moments in what Rob Bell is saying.
Yes.
I also feel like, and this is the case with almost any sermon in the history of the world, could be like 5 minutes shorter, you know, like tighten that up a little bit. But like, even again, saying things that he's saying in 2002, 2003 that we're not even saying in 2026, you know, he's talking about forgiving and the importance of forgiving people. But he says at one point, you need to forgive, but that does not mean you need to forget, which is like not what a church normally is telling you to do.
Agreed.
At all.
Agreed.
And he talks about revenge. He's like, when, you know, people want to get revenge, but like, how many times have you actually felt truly satisfied from taking revenge on somebody?
And I like the story he told about, and like the way he jumps from story to story.
Is a little shocking.
It's such a manic early 2000s sermon style. Like, it's like, this girl told me she was raped. I'm like, okay, wow, that came out of nowhere without much context. But like, there was a lot of talking in circles about different stories of like, I was talking to this girl, I was talking to this guy, I was talking. And I did love the moment where he's talking about the golf balls in somebody's car that he's throwing out the window when someone cuts him off or whatever. And I love that as an example, because it's a less harsh way of being like, hey, when we take out our rage or whatever in that kind of capacity, it doesn't really do anything but hurt another person or like damage ourselves even more. I love that. But the lack of accountability when it came to all of the stuff that he was talking about, like, I mean, I understood, like, if he's hit, like, when he turns to the camera and he's like, if he's hitting you, you have to leave. That is a very big moment of this episode, especially. And it's a very beautiful moment. But the lack of accountability of, like, hey, he's gonna have to face God with his decisions when he's hitting you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
understandable, but it felt very much like, but what are you also doing to keep that person safe? What are you allowing them to go to church at the same time with this person?
I do think that it's interesting to also think of it in the framework of like, and this is how I always imagine it, right? Like that this is, because I remember the first time I watched this, I'm like, man, he is just, like you said, jumping from story to story to story. But then I think about it through the lens of like, hey, this is a video that was intended to put on in front of a youth group for like 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, well, that does change the framework a little bit, because it's, to me, when that happens, what you're trying to do is give as many examples that those kids might be afraid to talk about and are holding on internally. And, you know, with the main takeaway being like I do like the explanation of what he says revenge actually is. Yeah. Which is like, revenge is a lack of faith that God will handle it in some way. Yeah. And I'm like, that is an interesting, like, I've never thought about it through that lens. So it did make me kind of take a pause and be like, I guess that is like I don't have faith that karma will do its job, so I have to now take it upon myself to do something. But like, I also agree with you. There are a lot of blurred lines, but I think that sometimes blurred lines are very easy to fall into youth-based ministry.
Agreed. Agreed. But like, you know,
they play fast and loose with the follow through. I feel like in a lot of, because 100%. A lot of it also, again, having never dealt with this firsthand, this was just, I was really getting into Rob Bell, and someone was like, you should check out some of the Nooma stuff that he did, and they were like, I really like the Luggage video, you should check that one out. Okay. So my assumption is that these were like, you would watch it with the youth group, and that there was intentionally ambiguousness to have that conversation of like, all right, when he talked about the person being beat by their husband, like, what if that husband still goes to the same church as them? Like, what do you think a church would need to do? You know, like, I think sometimes it's about, you throw out all these hypotheticals because it's going to lead to a much more insightful conversation internally amongst the people. And I'm sure that was also what it was used for, is like meetings of the church personnel where someone probably did raise their hand and say, all right, well, what if that husband and wife, that's the wife who's being abused, they both go to this church, like, how do we protect the woman?
Right. How do we do that? And like, how do we hold the man to accountability? And that's kind of the thing that I was like, in the back of my mind, my little rage feminist demon in me was like, you gotta report it. Yeah. And then it's just like, oh no, women don't report a lot of that stuff because they're not taken seriously, and they end up in Epstein files, and then they get shamed because they're in the Epstein files, but then they're the victim. And like, there was like a big long threaded line of me being like, but this is such a patriarchal way of saying, you know, God will take care of it. You don't have to worry if you're a good servant. And I'm like, I'm against that in every respect, where it's just like, yes, there should be more conversation. And I feel like a lot of that came from having the visuals of this guy hanging out at an airport as a woman gets off of a plane, grabs her own luggage.
It should have been a man. Like, just making it a woman, I think, makes that whole thing
so creepy.
Yeah, it's so much worse than if we were just following a random guy who's paying for his parking and gets it. Like, it sounds like that shouldn't make a difference, but it makes all the difference.
It does.
I think in the grand scheme.
It does. Just thematically, just like even like me thinking as a teen, I'm like, oh, okay, so Rob Bell did something bad to this woman, and he needs to forgive her, I guess, or she needs to forgive him. I'm not really sure what this is in conjunction with each other. And then she gets fucking flatlined by a dump truck. It felt so like overbearingly like, don't worry, God's got your back. and you'll die anyway.
You're going to die anyway. So I've never really looked into what some of the other videos are.
Okay.
So I was looking at some of the other titles. And I said it earlier, but I do want to check out the video that was called "When We Omit the Feminine, We're Missing Out on the Fundamental Part of God's Nature." I'm like, ooh.
Beautiful.
I am very intrigued by where that goes.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll check out a couple more of these, and we'll
Discuss.
visit a few more Noomas in the future.
Okay.
But let's go on a quick commercial break, and then I'm going to tell you all about what Rob Bell's been up to since these videos.
Oh, fantastic. And then if anybody out there did watch this as a teenager in their youth group, please let us know.
Please.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Remember when James Cameron nearly directed a Spider-Man movie?
What about when we almost got Batman Year One with Joaquin Phoenix?
Or David Goyer's Flash movie that would have starred Ryan Reynolds?
Well, if you want to learn about all the unmade superhero movies, then check out Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
Hosted by Ben Wan and Alex Ramsey, every month we cover nostalgic superhero movies with deep dives into unmade scripts, early drafts, deleted scenes, alternate cuts, concept art, novelizations, and tie-in novels.
We also interview the people involved in making the superhero films of our childhood, with our past guests including superhero actors, directors, screenwriters, and concept artists.
So remember, that's Superhero Stuff You Should Know, or Superhero SYSK on social media. Check us out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Imagine a near-future Los Angeles where most people are microchipped, and a new app lets you sync minds with someone else. You could share thoughts, feel emotions, experience life through someone else's head. Would you do it? From indie filmmaking team Femregard Productions comes Sync, a sci-fi psychological thriller about friendship, control, and the terrifying cost of letting someone into your mind. When one woman syncs with her best friend, she realizes too late, some connections can take over. Watch Sync on Amazon Prime Video, Fandango at Home, Hoopla, and more beginning March 6th and streaming free with ads on Tubi starting April 4th. Follow the film on Instagram at Sync the Movie, that's SYNC the Movie, for updates. Because the mind is a terrible thing to share.
So, while this is happening, he's building up this Mars Hill Church. In 2005, an estimated 11,000 people were attending the two gatherings that he had on Sundays at 9 and 11 a.m. By March 2011, Sunday attendance had been numbered to 8 to 10,000 people coming. His teachings at Mars Hill inspired the popular Love Wins bumper sticker, and the congregation freely distributed these stickers at services. So let's jump backwards, though. In 2005, he releases his first book called Velvet Elvis, Repainting the Christian Faith, which, according to the summary, is for the millions of people who are fascinated by Jesus but cannot do the standard Christian package. In his debut book, Bell explores a new understanding of the Christian faith. In January 2007, he was named number 10 on a list of the 50 most influential Christians in America.
Sure.
In a poll that was taken by readers and online viewers of this particular, I don't know which magazine it was. His second book, titled Sex God, Exploring the Endless Connections Between Sexuality and Spirituality, was released in 2007. Again, wild concept in 2007 for someone to be talking about.
Very much so. Very much so.
In 2009, his project Drops Like Stars explored the links between creativity and suffering. Drops Like Stars was an international tour and book initially handwritten by Bell with photographs. Bell looks at the creativity, empathy, new connections, and growth that can spring from one's own suffering. When asked in an interview how he'd become interested in suffering, he replied that as a pastor, he's seen people at their most poignant moments in their own lives. At the same time, he was doing lectures about creativity and realized that there truly was a connection between these two halves of his life. All these connections between the suffering and the art making.
Which is another reason
you
why...
took a little bit of a pause there. I'm curious what thoughts?
In the early 2000s, there was a big Meisner movement in basically using your own trauma, your own suffering in order to like create art. And I do think there is a place for that along with therapy.
Yes.
But I also feel like there have been some flagrant displays amongst the Christian church of using that pain in order to project a message onto that suffering that doesn't necessarily equate, and sometimes really minimizes the experience of the person. And I'm going back to Wonder Man again. You know, like there is a lot that people are afraid, especially as actors, to show the world, you know, like whatever that may be. I do love that in Wonder Man, it's almost equated to like an internal rage or an internal like mental issue in a way.
Yeah.
I really caution creativity and coming from suffering because there's also such a degree of perspective that's never addressed.
I hate people.
You hate
please
people. I knew
please
it.
don't isolate that sentence. Ever since I was a kid, I've always hated people who would stress that they were only creative when they were under the influence. And I think that it's equally as frustrating when someone's like, I'm only creative because I'm suffering. Like, no, like those both seem like false. Like, it's like, no, you can be inspired by things that were happening when you were under the influence. You can be inspired by your own suffering. But to say that that is the only way that you can be creative, I think is more of a bug than a feature. You know what I mean? Like that's
well, and it's so funny too because the comedian's escaping me, and I just tried to do a quick Google search and I can't remember his name, but he's a UCB actor. He's a very smart, funny guy. He's been in like everything, but he did an HBO stand-up special where he talks about how he was given like medication for anxiety and things, and he was told like, don't take that, it's gonna damper your creativity, it's going to be bad for you, you're not going to be as creative, you're not going to be able to use that kind of stuff. And he's like, and that's a fucking lie. He's like, it takes someone being in a mentally sound place to make something that's actually creative. And that's also what like really has bothered me, at least lately, when it comes to people asking for creativity out of strife and pain when people are going through so much, at least politically and country-wise within our nation at this moment in time in 2026, is like being asked to pull creativity out of that suffering when it's like, I just need a moment to rest. And I feel like the best art does come from people who have a nice time coming out of a bad experience, but after reflection. And I understand where people go to when it comes to, you know, drugs, alcohol, and things like that, because it strips away all of that pain and like gets to like the core root of like everything. It kind of like lays bare where you're at in that moment. But it's not necessarily a good thing without good guidance, without, you know, moderation, and without like actual medication.
No, that all makes sense. Let's talk about Bell's big career shift and downfall, because on September 22nd, 2011, he announced his resignation from the Mars Hill Church to, quote unquote, start a spiritual talk show in Los Angeles. This also tied in with his book, Love Wins, that had caused controversy within evangelical circles because of its teachings of hell. That controversy caused thousands to leave Mars Hill and also led to Bell's departure. In the book, he states, It's been clearly communicated to many that this belief in hell as eternal conscious torment is a central truth of the Christian faith, and to reject it is in essence to reject Jesus. This is misguided and toxic, and ultimately subverts the contagious spread of Jesus' message of love, peace, forgiveness, and joy that our world desperately needs to hear right now.
Yeah.
He does not choose any view of his own in the book, but states whatever objectives a person may have of the universalistic view of the world, and there are many, one has to admit that it is fitting and proper and Christian to long for it. The book was criticized from numerous conservative evangelical figures, saying that the book was theologically disastrous for not flat out rejecting universalism. Bell denies that he was ever a universalist and says that he does not embrace any particular view, but argues that Christians should leave room for uncertainty on the matter. Love Wins according to one review, Love Wins presents Bell's case for living with mystery rather than demanding certitude. He also questions how Christians focus on getting to heaven instead of focusing on God's renewal and ability to transform our world. Bell argues that Jesus and the wider Jewish traditions in which he was a part of focused on God's ongoing restoration of this world and not focusing on just trying to get individuals into heaven, in quotes.
That's great. That's amazing. That's an incredible journey to go through.
In July of 2012, Bell held his first major event since leaving Mars Hill, doing a speaking event at the Viper Room nightclub in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Bell has hosted various conferences and workshops in Laguna Beach for leaders, teachers, preachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and pastors, anyone whose work involves creating something and then turning it loose to the world. At this first event, however, Bell took a question from the audience member concerned about the church's acceptance of gay members. Bell's response was, "Some people are gay, and they're our brothers, and you're our sisters, and we love all of them. We love you. So many gay people I know are passionate disciples of Jesus, just like I'm trying desperately to be. So let's all just get together and do something about the truly big problems that are in our world and stop focusing on that one."
That's great.
He further expressed this on March 17th of 2013 during an interview in San Francisco when he said, "I'm for marriage and I'm for fidelity. I'm for love, whether it's a man and a woman and a woman, and a man and a man. I think the ship has sailed. This world that we are living in, this is the world we're living in, and we need to affirm people where they currently are." In 2013 of March, he expressed frustration at the state of conservative evangelicalism, calling it very narrow-minded, politically intertwined, and culturally ghettoizing evangelical subcultures.
Nice.
He said that they turn away a lot of people from the church by talking about God in a way that doesn't actually shape people into more loving and compassionate people, and adding that the evangelicals have supported policies and ways of viewing the world that are actually destructive, and they've been doing it in the name of God, and we need to repent for that. In 2018, a documentary about Rob Bell's life called The Heretic was released.
Ooh. Wow. Okay, we're going to have to watch that.
Yeah, at some point. I've still never seen that, but yes.
Okay.
So my introduction to him was always just through his podcast. He has a podcast called The Bellcast, and I know that he is like, you know, if a comedian had a pastor, he is Pete Holmes' pastor. Like, Pete Holmes and Rob Bell are very close friends, and
that makes
Pete
sense.
speaks a lot about how Rob has helped him with his own spiritual journey of, like, you know, I've said before, I watched the trailer for The Heretic, and Pete Holmes is in it, and he says, like, when people leave the church because of a traumatic event, there is still this weird ache inside of their heart, whether it's for the community or the things that were good before it turned toxic. There's always this hole. And he's like, Rob Bell speaks to the people that have that hole in their heart.
Okay.
That hole that felt like something went wrong somewhere in their journey, and making them realize that they weren't the ones that were wrong. It was the church that caused the problem.
Right. Right. Well,
and I'm like, okay, cool. So that's why I mean, listen, I don't think anyone's perfect. I certainly don't think that anyone should blindly follow any religious leader. But even looking at, I think I forgot to add this part in, but like he graduated from his divinity college, I want to say in 1995. So to have the preaching style that we're already seeing in this Nooma video when he's only been doing it for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
You can see why he's become such a beloved public speaker
and he went to,
in that front.
He went to Fuller Theological Seminary and then Wheaton College. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's really killer. His spouse is Kristen Bell, but not the Kristen Bell we're all
Not the
know.
Kristen Bell. Yeah, no. I saw that a couple times. At one point, I saw that he did something with Kristen Bell, and for a split second, I was like, oh, what a cool collaboration. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, that's right. He has a wife also named Kristen.
Yeah, which is fair.
But you know what, Katie, I'll tell you this much. For $1 million, I didn't think we were going to talk for 38 minutes on this Nooma video.
No,
so
I didn't. I honestly didn't either. I thought this was just like another very easy cringe thing where I called Rob Bell a Unabomber like character because he's
good old fashioned classic Christian cringe where we call Rob Bell a Unabomber,
and he's not. And like I'm really glad to hear what he's doing and like his philosophy and theology right now. Like that's great to hear.
All right. Well, I think we'll be back next week with more Christian cringe.
Remember when James Cameron nearly directed a Spider-Man movie?
What about when we almost got Batman Year One with Joaquin Phoenix?
Or David Goyer's Flash movie that would have starred Ryan Reynolds?
Well, if you want to learn about all the unmade superhero movies, then check out Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
Hosted by Ben Wan and Alex Ramsey, every month we cover nostalgic superhero movies with deep dives into unmade scripts, early drafts, deleted scenes, alternate cuts, concept art, novelizations, and tie-in novels.
We also interview the people involved in making the superhero films of our childhood, with our past guests including superhero actors, directors, screenwriters, and concept artists.
So remember, that's Superhero Stuff You Should Know, or Superhero SYSK on social media. Check us out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.